Oh, hello. Good evening. I was just sitting down to read Hans Christian Andersen's The Emperor's New Clothes. What's that? You'd like me to read it to you? I suppose I could do that. Once upon a time, there was an emperor who was so exceedingly fond of new clothes that he spent all of his money on being well dressed. He cared nothing about reviewing his soldiers, going to the theater, or going for a ride in his carriage, except to show off his new clothes. He had a coat for every hour of the day, instead of saying, as one might, in any other ruler, "The king's in council." Here, they always said, "The emperor's in his dressing room." In the great city where he lived, life was always happy. Every day many strangers came to town. Among them one day came two swindlers. They let it be known they were weavers, and they said they could weave the most magnificent fabrics imaginable. Not only were their colors and patterns uncommonly fine, but clothes made of this cloth had a wonderful way of becoming invisible to anyone who was unfit for his office or who was unusually stupid. "These clothes would be just the fine clothes for me," thought the emperor. "If I wore them, I would be able to discover which men in my empire are unfit for their posts, and I could tell the wise men from the fools. Yes, I certainly must get some of this stuff woven for me right away." He paid the two swindlers a large sum of money to start work at once. They set up two looms and pretended to weave, though there was nothing in the looms. All the finest silk and the purest thread which they demanded went right into their travel bags. While they were working the empty looms far into the night. "I'd like to know how these weavers are getting along with the cloth," the emperor thought, but he felt slightly uncomfortable when he remembered that those who were unfit for their position would not be able to see the fabric. It couldn't have been that he doubted himself, yet he thought he'd rather send someone else to see how things were going. The whole town knew about the cloth's peculiar power, and all were impatient to find out how stupid their neighbors were. "I'll send my trustworthy official to the weavers," the emperor decided. "He'll be the best one to tell me how the material looks, for he's a sensible man and no one does his duty better." So the trustworthy official went to the room where the two swindlers sat, working away at their empty looms. "Heaven help me," he thought as his eyes flew wide open. "But I can't see anything at all." But he did not say so. Both the swindlers begged him to be so kind as to come near and approve the excellent pattern, the beautiful colors. They pointed to the empty looms, and the poor old official stared as hard as he could. He couldn't see anything, because there was nothing there to see. "Heaven have mercy," he thought. "Can it be that I'm a fool? I'd never have guessed it, and not a soul must know. Am I unfit to be an official? It would never do to let on that I can't see the cloth." "Don't hesitate to tell us what you think of it," said one of the weavers. It's beautiful. It's enchanting." The old official peered through his spectacles. "Such a wonderful pattern. What colors! I'll be sure to tell the emperor how delighted I am with it." "We're pleased to hear that," the swindler said. They proceeded to name all the colors and to explain the intricate pattern. The old official paid the closest attention so that he could tell it all to the emperor. And so he did. The swindlers at once asked for more money, more silk, more gold thread, to get on with the weaving. But it all went into their pockets. Not a thread went into the looms, though they worked at their weaving as hard as ever. All the town was talking of this splendid cloth, and the emperor wanted to see it for himself while it was still in the looms. Attended by a band of chosen men, among whom was his old trusted official, he found them weaving with might and main, but without a thread in their looms. "Magnificent," said the official who was already duped. "Just look, your majesty. What colors! What design!" He pointed to the empty looms, supposing that he and the others could see the stuff. "What's this?" thought the emperor. "I can't see anything. This is terrible. What am I? A fool? Am I unfit to be emperor? What a thing has happened to me, of all people! Oh, it's very pretty," he said. "It has my highest approval," as he nodded at the empty loom. Nothing could make him say that he couldn't see anything. His whole entourage stared and stared. One saw no more than the other, but they all joined the emperor in exclaiming, "Oh yes, it's very, very pretty," and they advised him to wear the clothes made of this wonderful cloth, especially for the great procession that he was soon to lead. "Magnificent, excellent, unsurpassed," were bandied from mouth to mouth, and everyone did their best to seem well pleased. Before the procession, the swindlers sat up all night and burned more than 6 candles to show how busy they were finishing the emperor's new clothes. They pretended to take the cloth off the loom. They made cuts in the air with huge scissors, and at last they said, "Now the emperor's new clothes are ready for him." Then the emperor himself came with his noblest noblemen, and the swindlers each raised an arm as if they were holding something. They said, "These are the trousers, here's the coat, this is the mantle," naming each garment. "All of them are as light as a spider's web. One would almost think he had nothing on, but that's what makes him so fine." Exactly, all the noblemen agreed, though they could see nothing, for there was nothing there to see. "If your imperial majesty will condescend to take your clothes off," said the swindlers, "we'll help you on with your new ones, right here in front of the long mirror." The emperor undressed, and the swindlers pretended to put on his new clothes, one garment after another. They took him around the waist and seemed to be fastening something. That was his train. "How well your majesty's new clothes look. Aren't they becoming?" he heard on all sides. "The pattern is so perfect, those colors so suitable. It is a magnificent outfit." Then the minister of public processions announced, "Your majesty's canopy is waiting outside." The noblemen who were to carry his train stooped low and reached for the floor as if they were picking up his mantle. Then they pretended to lift it high. They didn't dare admit they had nothing to hold. So off the emperor went in his procession. Everyone in the streets and the windows said, "Oh, how fine are the emperor's new clothes! Don't they fit him to perfection?" Nobody would confess that they couldn't see anything, for that would prove him either unfit for his position or a fool. But then then a little child said, "But look, he's got nothing on." "Oh, did you ever hear such innocent prattle?" the child's father said. And then one person whispered to another what the child had said. The child said, "He hasn't got anything on. He hasn't got anything on." Then at last the whole town cried out, But he hasn't got anything on. Oh, the emperor shivered, for he suspected they were right. But he thought, this procession has got to go on. So he walked more proudly than ever, as his noblemen held high the invisible train. You know, it's interesting that everyone thought it was just them. Each person thought that they were the only ones who were thinking that something was wrong. The only ones who thought that something's not right here. But everyone else seems to be seeing it, so I dare not say anything. Turns out everyone was being deceived. But it took the courage of a young child to finally speak up and point out the incredibly obvious. But that's just a story.